First things first, gentlemen. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. How are you?
I'm not too bad as well. Good to hear that you're doing well. So before we get into the new album, where I would like to start is, I believe the two of you met around 2013. What was the thing that made you realize that working together would be a good idea?
You want to answer this?
Yeah. Well, I guess I knew Micha from Black Sun Empire at the time, and I was I think I was a pretty much a hardcore blackout party ganger. No, I went to all his parties, and I really like drum and bass. So then again, I was very interested in what he would do with dance music. So I think that was the.
Now he regrets it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I started Tinlicker by myself as to keep me interested in or to experience new things. And then the first release, Nicole Hoffman did the PR, and she also did the PR for his solo release at the same time. And she was like, "Your music has like similarities, and you live in the same city, and I think you might know a lot of the same people, so maybe you should meet." And we decided to go for a beer, and then we went to this party next to the cafe, and then we met all these people that we both know, and we were like, "How did we never meet?" It was
we
strange.
had similar friends.
Yeah. And then we decided to just do some studio dates, and I didn't think we did like 5 Wednesday evenings because he still had the normal job. And within those 5 studio sessions, we wrote like 4 tracks, I think. And then we were like, this goes pretty fluently. Maybe we should combine forces and work together.
Those initial those initial 5 sessions, and you mentioned for kind of 4 songs came out of that. Do you remember one? And what was the interaction like at that point? Because you barely know each other, at least on the surface, and then you can create something good out of kind of spending a couple hours together. So what was that like? Those first initial sessions?
Well, you were not familiar with my jokes, so that was kind of fun. Now he knows them all.
Now I'm like, not again.
No. I think the main goal was to, the main goal is actually always to have fun in the studio, and it was actually pretty fun right from the start. I mean, there was no pressure to release something or to write and produce a track. We were just basically sitting there on Wednesday nights. I think it were Monday nights, but that's not, I don't know. It's not
For me, they were Wednesday nights.
And we stayed there for hours. And, after the studio session, we also, went to a cafe and just had some more chats and, finding stuff out of each other.
Yeah, and it was interesting because he comes out of all kinds of house music, from hardcore to progressive house, and I come from drum and bass side. And then we would try to just make a track without making it sound or have the rules that it should be within this box of techno or progressive house. More like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then I don't know, it just was really easy. The music would just flow real easy, and not a lot of disagreements in the studio, maybe a little bit, but mainly it was just a lot of fun. And I think because we both didn't really we didn't have to succeed, it was more out of fun than it had to become like a really big thing, or it was just like we wanted to make music. And I think we still have that feeling. We just, it's not that we think we should be a successful act, but more like we should make music that we really like.
And in the beginning, I was really fangirling with Micha to see how they made the drum and bass tracks as well. I was like, wow, that was the first time I've ever seen it in real life.
Well, that's an interesting point that you mentioned then, because what have you learned from each other then over time, over the last couple of years working together? What have you learned, or what have you seen that the other does well?
Well, I had hardly any knowledge of any other dance music besides drum and bass. I mean, of course, I like Underworld and Chemical Brothers and stuff like that and Prodigy, but really to diving into house scene or the progressive scene, I have no clue. I mean, I know some of the big hits because they were on the radio, but I never really went to techno or house parties. And so he brought a lot of that knowledge of what was already done and why stuff works, because it's quite different from drum and bass. And I don't know. Yeah, I think mix down wise, I brought stuff to the table that he didn't know thing about. So
definitely, yeah.
The combination of those two worlds.
I learned a lot about like some production techniques I wasn't familiar with, and especially when you have to make something that sounds a bit more aggressive than usual. And I think I've learned from you about that.
Yeah, and I don't know. Yes, what do you learn from each other? Now we quite know what we're good at, both. And in the beginning, you're just let the other just do what they want to do and not interfere too much. That's well. Like sometimes when you do a collaboration, it's real hard to not say anything, because if someone is just fooling around, sometimes something really nice happens. But if you constantly interfere what they're doing, it becomes real forced. So yeah, I think we're good in not letting the other one do just
whatever feels like doing.
Yeah,
yeah,
and not to judge too quickly.
What I find interesting then is you mentioned that it's mostly about fun. That's why it started, and that's kind of where you guys still are, even though you've had quite some success in the past couple of years. But did you set so there weren't ambitions of that kind? But did you set yourself any musical ambitions, any a musical vision of what you wanted to accomplish sonically?
I mean, of course, you have always have kind of like a goal. Like at some point, it shouldn't be just a fun project, because you also need to make a living. You can't spend 40 hours a week and not earn anything. So when it becomes part of your income, then it also becomes more professional, and then you start having these goals, what you want to do, and then like now we just started doing a live show because we want to keep challenging ourselves and feel real scared again when you go on stage, instead of doing a DJ set in which we've been doing that for so long. You can just tap him on the shoulder when there's 1 minute to go up, and he'll just plug his USB stick in, and then the show starts, right? But with live show, you're like, oh my God, everything can go wrong. And then feeling that excitement again is great. So I think our goal is constantly keep challenging what we're doing, and do we still like what we're doing, or should we change stuff? Because he's constantly trying to work out what he likes and what he doesn't like, and I'm a bit more slow when it comes to changes. Like I'm a bit conservative, and he's all over the place. So the combination of those two things is good.
Yeah, I guess now when we finish this album, and there is a new vision, but it happens unconsciously as well. So you just wanna, I just don't want to do the same things over and over again. Mm-hmm. So you just keep challenging yourself as well in production things and musical things. Now I'm trying to play, for example, I'm not really schooled in keyboards and playing keys, but I'm trying to learn that as well. So I know a bit more of how it works and what to play, and just keep challenging yourself.
So maybe sometime on stage as well?
Oh yes. Well, with the live show, I'm playing keys as well, and
right.
I'm still very nervous about that.
So am I.
But what I find interesting then is because we talked about those initial first sessions that you had together, and now it's been quite some years, and with the new album then, Another Lifetime, what was the approach, and what was how do you see the development that you've made since kind of starting out and those initial sessions and where you are now?
Well, in the beginning, we didn't really use a lot of vocals. There were mainly more like dance floor orientated tracks. I mean, we never made short versions of any tracks. They were all DJ arranged, and now we approach it more as a song, and then we might turn it into something that we could actually play as a DJ. So that changed. And also with this pandemic, it was strange. You couldn't test out anything, struggling with what you actually want to make, and are clubs ever going to open again? So this whole album was I don't know, a reflection of how we felt and what we think is nice to listen to wherever you are.
Well, it's also a bit more calming than all the other, songs and albums before this, because there was also the pandemic did something with, it was very peaceful at some point, at a point where there was no air traffic, people stayed home. It was like very quiet outside, and you could just walk into nature. It was very quiet, and I think that's also a big part in the songs. It's more calming and relaxed than usual, and we couldn't test it in clubs, so there was no reference for club music at all. So I think that's also why they became more songs. And
yeah, and like in the end, just before things started opening up again, we noticed that mixdown wise, also we built a new studio. We were like, oh, maybe it's a little bit too dull sounding, like not enough high end and stuff. So we actually, when things started opening up again, and we had a first few shows, we started changing mixdowns because we were like, okay, maybe it's a little bit too calming.
Yeah, a little bit, yes.
It is. It's a constant reflection of the situation you're in.
Yeah.
Very quickly then, what was it like being back on stage, or going back on stage, being able to feel that connection with the crowd again, and things like that, after maybe a year or a year and a half of not being able to do so?
Felt very normal, actually.
I was jealous because when we had our first shows, I injured my knee. So the first month I was sitting at home on the couch while he was doing the shows, and I was like, oh my God, it's over and I'm still at home.
Well, the first show was in London at the Drum Sheds. We played on a day from the Anjuna Deep label, and I was actually pretty nervous. Pretty hectic to be in an airplane again, to to be in air traffic, in the traffic jams from London. And I went to the festival, and I got like 30 minutes before showtime, so it was like getting there, waiting, and just going on stage and playing. I was actually pretty nervous.
But the moment you walk into a club and it's full, it feels real weird, but within like 5 minutes, it's like, okay, it's like normal again. I mean, you kind of tell yourself, I'm not going to take pictures with people because I might get infected. And then 10 minutes later, you took 20 pictures. It's strange how these things go.
Yeah.
I suppose it's a big part of what you do, that connection with the audience. So were you, I don't know if surprise is the good word, but the fact that it took off, the music, over the past couple of years, were you surprised by that, or what would you attribute kind of the success to, or the fact that people all over the world can enjoy what you do?
That's a good question.
Well, what comes in mind pretty easily is that we never actually like gave it up. We just continued our own journey. And I think, well, if you gave up, it's done. But we kind of believe in what we do, changing visions from time to time, making an album, doing shows, and then you kind of like grow through something, and you see yourself, over there, and you just keep going on. And I guess that's the power of why people are getting noticed by Tinlicker at the moment.
And also it was in the beginning, it was really hard because nobody knew where to place us. We were not techno, we were not progressive house, we weren't trance. So getting our foot between the door, that was actually the biggest struggle. But once that happened and we released our first album on Juno Beats, and people started appreciating what we do, we knew we were like, oh, okay, so now they're ready for what we do, and we don't really sound like anyone else. So there's not a lot of competition, or I don't see it as competition, but people were like, if you like us, you might actually keep liking us. And then we're like, okay. Pandemic started right in the middle of our first album tour, but we already felt that there were a lot of people interested in what we were doing. And somehow during COVID, that just kept on growing online with the Spotify plays. And we were like, okay, this is getting out of hand a little bit. And it was also really strange because you don't get the feedback in clubs that you can see your growth, but now you could just see numbers and
you see numbers on your phone when you wake up.
And then people start recognizing you in your supermarket at home, and you're like, oh shit, what's going on? Like I had food delivery, and then the guy gave me my food and was like, hey, you're Tinlicker. It's like, yep, bye. He knows where I live now. Oh my god. No. But it's also strange. Right now, we don't really know where we stand because clubs open again, and it's strange. It's exciting as well. Like, we don't know how much tickets will sell or how many people we made happy during COVID that actually want to see us live. So this year is going to be interesting.
Well, the good thing is then that you have a new album ready. Let's go into a couple of songs, because you mentioned that it's kind of like this snapshot of the time that you're in, or the surroundings that you're in when you make these songs. And for instance, Be Here and Now, I wrote down, if we had more time, would we make it count? It's kind of that reflection question that I think a lot of people had when this whole pandemic started. So a song like that, how does it start? And do you talk with the vocalists about themes or lyrics or anything? Or how does a song like that come to be?
Well, Be Here Now particularly started off. Actually, I wrote the melody for Be Here Now in a place called Radio Kootwijk.
Okay.
I was there on a short holiday. And
a mushroom trip? No.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Psychedelic weekend. I can remember it was autumn, so and it was before. No, it was actually in the pandemic period. And I wrote that part. I came back, and then we kind of like together we made a little demo instrumental, and we were already had contact with Nathan Nicholson. So that's where we sent Nathan the track. And actually, personally, I don't like to say a lot of things about the song. If it works, I guess the vocalists know what you were writing or how you were feeling. So, and actually Nathan he pretty much nailed it for me. He actually did exactly what we were hoping for. He felt the emotion of the song, and wrote about it. And I think he wrote also a little bit about the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, we're not lyrical writers. So those singers know a lot better how to write the song, and then we let them fill that part in, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if it works, it's an actual collaboration between three people, because then you all wrote a part of it. If we start telling them what to sing, then it becomes like you hire someone to do something for you, and this way it actually becomes their song as well. So
I can remember we also, if we send a song to a vocalist, we also never we changed the file name to like demo 1 or demo 2, so it doesn't have a title which kind of, I don't know how to say this, but
to influence or to sway somebody to write a certain direction.
Yeah, because if you call it peanut butter, it might have turned out real different.
Sure. Well,
a lot chunkier.
But am I right in saying that you weren't able to meet any of these people that you worked with because of the pandemic, or that everything happened online, kind of?
Yeah, everything happened online. I think up until now, everything happened online. All the tracks we wrote together with vocalists were via the internet, and of course we meet people like Bella from Cut Underscore and stuff, but the actual recording never really happened when we were in the same room. Okay. I mean, he has worked with quite a lot of vocalists in the same room, but it's always a different energy. Sometimes it's the same with if you work with someone you don't know. Sometimes it works, and sometimes people feel really pressured that it has to happen right now. I mean, sometimes you wake up at night and they'll have an idea for the song, and they might be able to record it at home instead of that 2 hours that you have in the studio, and it has to happen here. Right. Sometimes it doesn't work like that,
But now everything is opening up again, and I would like to invite a couple of people we worked with in the past now, and especially for the album. So I hope we can collaborate with Jamie again and with Nathan, and we actually physically being able to be in the same room and write new stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned expanding the live show, so perhaps getting a couple of them on stage as well, or is that too far in the future?
Maybe in the future. I mean, most of them all have their own band or something else, so it kind of has to fit people's schedule, and you need to practice as well. Like,
sure.
You don't turn up on a festival like, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, we're gonna do this song. It's like, okay, it doesn't work like that.
Well, we do have a session in 2 weeks with Nathan, actually.
Okay.
And it's for the radio, I guess.
Okay. Cool.
So he's coming to Utrecht, and he's going to do a live session with us. So basically, that's where it's going to happen.
That sounds good. Another track I wanted to talk about because I really liked it, and it's kind of 2 tracks because it's Xanadu, and the way it goes into You Take My Hand. That whole track, the atmosphere that it creates. What was the inspiration for that? Did it just start with a synth sound, or what? Yeah, what brought that together?
Which one? The first?
Well, Xanadu? The first Xanadu, but I really liked how it kind of flowed into the other one as well.
I don't know. Xanadu was started in back home in my bathrobe in pandemic before lunchtime, trying to write some chords. I don't know. It started. Xanadu started with like trying a new arpeggiator thing, and then trying to make an interesting loop, less cliche, and then it turned into, was more like a dance floor thing, and then he started You Take My Hand, and somehow
well, that's funny. We actually indeed I wrote a big part of You Take My Hand, but we went to Terschelling last year in May, and then that's where we actually together, like we finished the songs together. So I can remember we wrote a big part of Xanadu together in the breakdown, halfway the track. It feels like, it has a different energy than the start, and then and You Take My Hand is it's a pretty long journey, actually.
But You Take My Hand started out differently. It didn't have that fast bass line first. It was a bit steppier, and then working together, we're like, it doesn't work. So we changed that into something like Xanadu, and I guess more energy, and also maybe closer to dance floors opening again. So yeah, we constantly change, but it wasn't. We didn't really think about that. You had Xanadu first, and then You Should Take My Hand should be the next one. They were created separately.
Yeah.
But of course, you write a lot of tracks, and then eventually you start picking them, and then start arranging them how the album should flow, and then be like, you don't want too many tracks that have like this really energetic bass line. I don't know. It's a big skill, and then
It's Xanadu. Is it based on a chord progression from an old classical song? Or?
I think it's just a bit of Bach, or I don't know, just 4 or 5 chords, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
No, but you mentioned the dance floor, and that's what it kind of gave me flashbacks to some club nights I had years ago. So it kind of put me in that kind of atmosphere. So
you call us old?
Well, no, I'm calling myself old. One last thing then, before we go. What do you hope, now that you have a new album out, like you mentioned, you kind of were on a upward trajectory, then the whole pandemic happened, but you still kind of kept growing, although it's less visual and more just numbers on the screen. What do you hope now that this year will bring in terms of kind of expanding still what you do? Do you have any expectations? Do you have any goals for this year?
I mean, one of our goals is, because we both fell in love with Lowlands Festival when we were young. We've been there a lot of times, so it would be nice to have a live show on a stage like that, and so also all your friends could come and see. But that's more like a personal thing.
My goal is to have hair, actually.
Grow a beard here. No,
make it all the way up.
No, but the thing with Tinlicker, we never really saw ourselves as a DJ act, or we see ourselves as an act, and when we perform, we only kind of play our own music, and then we create like edits of songs from other people that we like. But everything is kind of like Tinlicker.
Actually. No.
Everything is kind of like Tinlicker, and so we see ourselves more as an act, and we want to expand that. I mean, that's why we started the live show, and it would be nice to just people see it more that you go to a concert instead of we're going to a club night with 16 DJs and we're one of them. It should be you go to a show and it's 3 hours of Tinlicker, and that's kind of what you get, and then people go home.
And definitely expanding the live show. I mean, it's basically we just started, and it's very basic. We're working with Michiel Knoop. He's a great visual artist. He designs our stage, and he's gonna help. He's already helping us with how the stage will look, and it would be nice to expand things. Maybe indeed to have like Nathan Nicholson on stage, or do more with visuals, play keys, for example, in
Take dance lessons. You like.
Yeah, but to feel more comfortable on a stage playing a live show would be nice, instead of being very nervous.
What have you noticed then? And this is my final question, but you've been able to play a couple of shows. You mentioned the show in London. You've played a couple of shows in the United States. What have you noticed about how the people react and kind of how they approach what you do?
It feels like everybody missed it, and they go more mental. They kind of like enjoy it more. I think most people now realize that they took everything for granted, and being able to dance again is it's special again. And I hope it stays that way. But I'm not sure, because all these events are going to happen, and but I think people realize now it's more special now than before COVID.
Yeah, and what makes making music special is when you release a track, people make it their own because they experience life situations while listening to your music, or if they feel bad, they might try to cheer up by listening to our music. So when you meet those people, especially in times like these, that everybody had a shit time, and it gave them some joy, and you see that reflect when they meet you. They think you're the guy that gave me some joy. I wasn't there, so for me it's kind of weird that they like you so much, because they basically like that song. They don't really like us, but
Sure.
they like that song. So but they make the songs their own more than the songs belong to us. It's sometimes weird, like especially when you play a song and everybody starts singing, and I sometimes don't even know the lyrics, but they know the lyrics. And we like, and that feeling of that you know that people had a moment while listening to your music, that's special.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a beautiful way to end this interview, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking the time. I wish you all the best with the new album, Another Lifetime, and I hope you get to play Lowlands anytime soon.
We hope. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much.